Women, what are some obvious hints that you made to guys you were into that flew right over their heads? Story 1. Long story short, and not a woman. Just adding in a story a bit late because it's a good example of how certain women can do that straight up confuses the hell out of us. It's my sophomore year of college and there's this really cute girl in my history class. She keeps following me around the room whenever I come in, sometimes moving her entire setup to move to where I'm seated. Laptop, notebook, highlighters, etc. This quickly turns into her laying on my shoulder or cuddling with my arm and napping during lectures. So naturally this girl is into me. So I ask her out. So we went out to dinner, have a great time. She keeps flirting with me in the car the entire time, on the way through the rest of the date, holding me, hugging me, kisses on the cheek and nose, etc. She says that she doesn't want her phone to die, so she asks if we could go back to my place so I could charge it for her. We had stopped by before dinner to feed my dog, because she doesn't want the date to end just yet. So we get to my place, and just walking in, she takes off her sweater and her bra and kicks off her shoes. So she's walking around in my apartment in leggings and a kind of crop top wife beater. She says to go ahead and turn on the TV because it's gonna take her phone a while to charge. I do, and she sprawls across my lap and asks if we can cuddle. I love cuddles, so I'm like, hell yeah, of course. I lay back, she lays back on me, and then slips her leggings off. I'm laying there thinking, damn, alright, should have asked her out a long time ago. So strip down to my boxers and toss her to the side while wrapping my arms around her. She smiles and backs into it and slowly starts gyrating on my crotch, all the while giggling to herself as she feels me getting hard. So I immediately start kissing her neck and sliding my hand up her thighs when she sits up and goes, "Hey, what the?" I just start looking at her dumbfounded and go, "You were pressing your against my, figured you wanted to mess around." And she says back to me, without skipping a beat, "I just like feeling a hard against my butt sometimes. Don't want to do you, Jesus." I'm taken aback, but all I could muster to say was, "Sorry, wasn't trying to push it. Thought it was what you were leading to." She went back in for cuddles, but like 2 minutes later asked if I could take her home, and that was our last date. I would be so confused at that point. The signals this girl was giving seemed very clear. That switcheroo at the very end is just so devastating. There's something to be said about communicating exactly what you want and not just hinting at things. Story 2. Eventually, we're on his couch, and he puts on When Harry Met Sally. I'm still thinking about his persuasive argument, and I'm ready to see if it lives up to the hype, not even remotely considering the fact that he explicitly just told me he puts it on to romance the ladies. He makes fun of me for sitting on the other end of the couch, by the way. For some reason, I had a mondo crush on this guy, but didn't think to sit closer. I mean, I could have. He said I smelled really good, but man, that Nora Ephron can sure write a movie, and that 40,000 headman sure can't pick up a hint. The rest of the night goes on very chastely, and I'm wondering if maybe somewhere down the line, this nice handsome fella might be interested in some smooches. He drops me off at my place, and I think fondly of that thought. The next day, he texted me to say, "My pillows still smell like you." I still didn't get the hint. A couple weeks later, he was telling me about this nice aide he started seeing. Had a lot in common with the 40,000. Similar hair, played the same instrument, but way out of my league. Ah, the folly of unrequited lust, thought. How I ever managed to get married is a miracle. Wait, so we have a girl who's not getting the hint? Is it even true that there are other situations like this? I didn't think it was possible for a guy to be too subtle for a girl to not understand. To be honest, it kind of gives me a little hope. Story 3. My current boyfriend and I met through Tinder. The conversation had been going pretty well, so we decided to meet up at a bar for some drinks. A drink and some chips later, the bar was closing, so we talked around the car park and into the warehouse. Pretty much the New Zealand version of Walmart. We ended up in the book section reading the steamy parts of romance novels to each other and having a good laugh. He then showed off his car and drove me back to where mine was parked. Despite all of my flirting, he didn't make a single move. I left feeling fairly disheartened. I texted him when I got home saying I got back safe, and he replied with, "I feel like I should have kissed you," to which I told him that's what I'd wanted. Fast forward a few days later. I drove to his house with pizza, cuddled up with him to watch a movie, and just before I had to, I decided that I had to make the move. Been together ever since, but I won't let him live it down. Well, again, this guy didn't take the hint, but I'm glad he got a second chance. A lot of these stories seem to end up with guys not getting that second chance. I'm glad this girl saw enough in this guy to give him that chance. It's nice that it has a happy ending and they're still together. Story 4. A long time ago, I ran into my then extremely fit, extremely attractive neighbor one night, and we got into a conversation about how crappy our fridges were. After a few minutes, she asked me if I wanted to come in and check out her fridge. I was like, dang, this lady really wants to talk about her fridge. I guess I'll be a good neighbor and listen for a while. I know. So I went inside and she proceeded to show me her fridge while standing really close to me. I remember thinking, dang, this lady has no concept of personal space. I honestly thought she just wanted to talk about her fridge. For some reason, it never dawned on me that no sane woman would ever invite a virtual stranger back to their apartment if they weren't interested in doing something fun and dirty or unaliving, but she wasn't the type. Needless to say, I left about 5 minutes after entering. Story 5. Met a nice, interesting, funny boy at a bar, still living at home, relevant, and we talked for a good hour or two. He walked me to the train station, and it turns out I just missed the last train home. I said, gee, too bad you live with your parents. I could totally crash at your place. He said, it's fine. And we headed back. He made me up the spare bed at the other end of the house and said goodnight. After a while, I texted him saying I couldn't sleep. Did he want company? So we hung out in his room. He invited me into his bed since I looked uncomfortable sitting next to it. We spent the night together in a single bed without a single thing happening. I'd only ever been with one guy, so just figured I had no mojo. Turns out he was trying to be respectful since he really liked me, and we ended up dating for 5 years. Story 6. I'm a dude that has missed some obvious hints. The worst one was when I was in college. I was at a house party and a bunch of us were playing some drinking games with cards. If someone drew a certain card, then everyone had to ask the person to their left a question, and that person then had to ask a question to the person on their left. Whomever did not ask a question or answered the question posed to them lost and had to drink. There was this very attractive brunette sitting to my left. When it was my turn to ask her a question, I said, "Nice pants. Wanna?" Note, this was not an actual attempt to get laid. I was drunk and thought it would be hilarious because most of the questions were pretty innocent. To everyone's surprise, she looked at me and said, yes, then took a long drink of her beer. I did not have spicy time that night. This story feels like the opposite of all the other stories. All the other ones are talking about hints. This one was just flat out obvious. I'm also kind of confused by the end of the story. I thought if you didn't answer the question, you had to take a drink. Why did she take a full-on drink even though she did answer the question? What am I not getting here? Story 7. I'm late, but I need to share my story anyway. This is kinda a switcheroo, but I'm the girl who misses obvious signals. Was a freshman in college hanging out with this hot dude whose band was on Wikipedia, so I was kinda sweating him. On the way to his place, he mentions how he always puts on When Harry Met Sally to impress girls he likes, and asks me if I've seen it. Nah, dog, I ain't really into rom-coms, I reply. And he's all, wait, you gotta see it, and gives me like a persuasive 5-paragraph essay about it. It was an essay, so I oblige. We're alone at his place, and he shows me all his music gear, which is dope, and I covet it. Shows me his favorite chord. I, too, am an aficionado of fat chords, so it seems like a productive meeting. Story 8. We should go for drinks sometime. Well, I don't really go to bars, and you'd have to drive, so you couldn't come to mine for drinks. I could always stay over if you'd like. Maybe. My recliner chair's pretty comfy to sleep in. Eventually, I just went for the "I've been flirting with you for months now. Are you interested or not?" approach. He was. He just didn't think for a second that it was mutual, so never noticed the hints. Story 9. I'm the guy. I was making eye contact with this girl all night at a party in college. Finally, when I bumped into her at the keg, she turned to me and asked me my name. I was really nervous. I laughed and asked her why she wanted to know my name. She then said, I ought to know your name if we'll be bumping into each other all night. I thought she was telling me to stop bothering her, so I said sorry and left. Like I said, I was nervous. That is a little more obvious than I was expecting. I have to admit, I think even I would take the hint at that point. Maybe he had been drinking too much and didn't get the hint. Poor guy. Poor girl. That was devastating to hear. Story 10. I'm a guy, but my biggest missed sign has got to be sophomore year of college. I was hanging out with this girl late night on a Friday one-on-one in a common area, and we're talking about trips we've taken around the globe. She mentions that she got a pair of Pikachu panties in Japan and asks me if I wanted to see them. I said, nah, that's pretty weird, and then left like 15 minutes later. I still look back on that moment and get flush with embarrassment. Story 11. The day my husband, then friend, went to tell me that he was into me and wanted to officially start dating, he was super nervous. Since he prompted the date and discussion, I was going to let him start it off and then I'd just be like, yes, me too. Well, he was unable to communicate for about 10 minutes and was skirting it due to being super nervous. I flat out told him, "You're not going to be rejected. Just say it." I must have said it at least 3 times before I gave up and just kissed him. Story 12. Had a near miss with my ex before we started dating. She messaged me saying she just picked up some drinks and was about to go to a friend's party, but she asked if she could visit me instead. Stupid me was like, "Oh, but I'm sure you'd have more fun at the party." And this went on for a few minutes. Then she finally had enough and said, "I got drinks. I really like you and I'm horny. So do you still want me to go to the party?" Ooh. To be honest, this feels like just about the best way to go about it. If the guy's not taking the hints, just flat out say it. We won't think any less of you. We'll think less of ourselves for not getting the hint. We know you were trying to be subtle about it. Just let us know. Story 13. Chatting with him on Facebook every single day for 3 months, inviting him to things, giving him tickets to sports games. 3 months later, he grabbed my hand to help me off a curb, and I didn't let go. Suddenly, he got it. 5 years later, we're still together. I'm less subtle now. I'll just grab his junk. Story 14. I was at a party talking to a girl about 2 weeks ago. Everything was going great when spicy time casually got brought up and she mentioned how I finish really fast. It's like what I'm known for. Pretty clear sign, right? Well, obviously not. I said, "Girl, me too." We stopped talking pretty quick after that. Story 15. When I was in high school, a girl from my class said I should come over and study in her bedroom with her. I was like, nah, I don't really care if I fail the math test anyway. Whoops. I also did fail that math test. Dude, you failed more than the math test. She specifically said study in her bedroom. To be honest, that's probably the line that I would have trouble making the decision or not. That might be a little too subtle for me. It kind of depends on how the girl is looking at the guy when she's saying it. Story 16. My now husband and I were childhood friends and we reconnected while I was in college. A few weeks into dating, we were hanging out alone at his parents' house. Then this happened. Me, "I haven't seen your bedroom in a while." Him, "It hasn't changed." 8 years later, we still laugh about that one. Story 17. Completely undressed in front of him and undid my hair. Then proceeded to tell him I was taking a bath and I lit candles and shut the lights off. He followed me in, got my hopes up, and then sat fully clothed on the toilet talking to me about serial killers for 30 minutes. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.